Finally, in SEAL training, there's a bell. All you have to do to quit is ring the bell. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to wake up at 5 o'clock. Ring the bell, and you no longer have to do the runs, the obstacle course, the PT, and you no longer have to endure the hardships of training. If you want to change the world, don't ever, ever ring the bell.
You are listening to the Kill to Quit podcast hour presented by Kill Clip Performance Drinks.
Enjoy drinking Kill Clip after sweaty workouts, big rides, full rounds, long days, longer nights, or whenever you feel the need to get back up to full speed.
Kill Clip Performance Drinks for Warriors. Ignite, endure, recover. And now, Mark Zinno.
Welcome into the Kill Clip podcast. Joining us this week, all the way from Iceland, our guest is a former baseball and soccer player, a former CrossFit athlete, a former Arena League football player, as well, currently a member of the Team USA Bobsled team. He is Blaine McConnell joining us on the Kill Clip podcast. Blaine, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
All right, very diverse, very dynamic background, but you started out as a young kid growing up just outside Seattle in Tacoma, Washington. What was your childhood like? What sports did you play?
Growing up, I played a lot of soccer and baseball, and I probably did that through young childhood through 6th grade, and then around 6th grade, I made the switch to playing football and running track.
All right, so how do you ultimately, end up in the CrossFit arena? Because you're playing high school football, you end up in the Arena League. I mean, kind of take me through the whole story of how this all comes together.
Yeah, I played high school football in Tacoma. Wasn't highly recruited out of high school. I had basically a few options in like the D2 area to go play football at. I took a year off after high school to just train and get better because I wanted to go D1. So in my area where I was at, I had 3 Division I schools to choose from. It was University of Washington, Washington State University, and then University of Idaho were the 3 pretty much closest to me. I ended up going to University of Idaho and walking on there. And then after college was over, to probably about a year, and then the Arena League was kind of floating around. There's an expansion team coming in like the South Seattle area, so I tried out for that, made the team, did 1 season of Arena, figured out real quick that it was not the same game of football as the outdoor game, and after the 1 year, I decided I didn't want to pursue that any longer. I was kind of ready to hang up the hat on the football career type thing, and then there's probably a year, maybe 2 years of just kind of doing the normal training at the gym and your everyday kind of Globo gym fit, where somebody introduced me to CrossFit and I thought it was just stupid at first. I didn't want to do any of that. And then one of my friends happened to challenge me. He's like, just try 1 workout, see how it goes, and then you can at least say you tried it. So I was like, okay, whatever. And it ended up being Fran, which is probably one of the most notorious CrossFit workouts. Everybody probably knows what that is. But it's 21, 15, 9 thrusters and pull-ups. And it took me like 4 minutes to do it. And I was dead for about 90 minutes after it. And I was so frustrated that 4 minutes of work could make me be in so much pain for so long. Like I was dizzy and felt like I wanted to vomit for 90 minutes after that 4 minutes, that I was like, I can't, regardless of how I feel about CrossFit in total at that time, I was like, I can't let myself be in this bad of shape right now. So I just went to a CrossFit gym, joined up, told them the stories. Like I sucked at Fran. I just want to get better. And then started going to like your everyday classes.
Interesting. I just want to go back for 1 second to the football thing. You know, you get out of college, right? After playing at Idaho, you're a running back and a defensive back. And did anything as far as regular work start to pop up? Like, did you have any idea of what you wanted to do?
I didn't have, like, I had an idea of what field I wanted to be in. And I wanted to do something along the lines of like strength and conditioning or personal training or something that still was involved in like the fitness world. My first job I was the personal training director at an LA Fitness for a few years, while also at the same time I was a strength and conditioning coach at my old high school. So I went back there. The same head coach has been there forever. He knew me. He knew my background, and he wanted me to come on and kind of help as like an assistant football coach, but mainly be like the strength and conditioning. So I ran their whole summer off-season program and then ran the in-season program for a lot of the athletes there.
And that's something that you think you wanted to do long term? I mean, where does the Arena League fit into that?
The Arena League just popped up. Like, it wasn't like I got out of school, I still wanted to play football. There's like all those semi-pro leagues that kind of float around every state.
Sure.
But there wasn't I wasn't going to the NFL, and I didn't want to play semi-pro because there was to me, it felt like it was a rec league type thing. It wasn't something serious. And then the Arena League was popping up in the area, and an expansion team was coming in. And I was interested in that because it was on a professional level. The way it was presented to me was this is like a step towards being a professional athlete, which at that time, fresh out of college, like, of course I wanted to be a professional athlete. So I went and just tried out. They basically did like an indoor combine. Like, you run the 40, you do a broad jump, do some drills. And then there was like a 7-on-7 scrimmage. And I ended up making the team from that.
Did you think that was going to lead to something else, like something bigger?
Yeah, at the time I thought if I did well enough in arena, then maybe like I could get tryouts for NFL or go to a different team. Like, I didn't know exactly what the plan was. It was just, I'm in arena now. It's better than not playing football.
Sure.
But at that point, like, I was playing defensive back, and arena rules are set up to where, like, basically if you're on the defense in any way, shape, or form, like, you're at a disadvantage. The rules are set up to where the teams are going to score 70 points. So to me, it was a frustrating transition going from like outdoor football to indoor football because the rule change was so vast that it wasn't as fun for me to be in arena as it was playing outdoor ball.
Give me an example. Like, what made it so offensive minded?
Well, for me, I was playing defensive back. You see like in arena football where you have a wide receiver that gets a 20-yard head start and they get a run at you. As a defensive back who's lined up against that receiver, the rule is, at the time, I don't know if it's still the same now, but the rule was you can't move back more than 3 yards from the line of scrimmage until he's within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. So basically, he gets a full sprint head start, and I have to just stand there and hope that I can turn around and try to catch up with him as fast as possible. And then, I mean, at that point, it gets down to like little tricks and stuff that you're trying to learn to where you can try to like jam them off the line a little bit differently. But like just little rules like that where they want him to be able to run past me and score a touchdown versus me being able to stick with him and stop it. So, and then I think there was another rule where certain plays during the game, if you were going to blitz, you had to notify the ref. And the way that you'd notify the ref is basically wave your hand in the air like, hey, I'm going to blitz. So then the whole offense would also see that. And they would be able to audible, like, hey, he's coming in. We're audible in this. Let's switch around that.
Yeah, advantage offense on that. But you also played running back, too. You never thought about switching to offense?
Not in arena, no. I played running back my freshman year going into University of Idaho. And the only reason I played running back is because I just walked on, and the person who happened to be the recruiting director for like my area was also the running back coach. So I tried out with him watching, and he was like, well, I have a spot available for a running back, and if you want to be on the team, that's what we got open right now. So I said, sure, I'll be a running back. So all through high school, I played receiver and DB. I hadn't played running back at all. So I just wanted to be on the team and just took the position as it was available.
One final question on the football thing. Any thoughts about what it would have been like had you stuck it out? Any thoughts about, could it have been, should it have been, would it have been kind of deal?
No, and I've never really been the type of person to look back on stuff and like coulda, woulda, shoulda, because I feel like I've always given a high effort towards everything that I've done on like the athletic side of stuff to where I'm comfortable how the outcome was. I basically had to walk on 3 times to the same football team, because within the 4 years I was at Idaho, we had 3 different head coaches. And my freshman year, I came in, walked on as a running back. That whole coaching regime ended up going down to USC. And then a new coaching regime came in. I had to re-walk on again. That's where the switch from offense to defense went, because I wanted to play safety. So I was walking back onto the team for year 2, and I just told them I was a safety. I didn't tell them I was a running back from year 1. So then I was able to do that. And then after that second year, they all left, went down to Arizona State, and a third coaching crew came in. At that point, it's just like, I think that's another reason why it was hard to kind of get any traction in college. For me, I didn't get any playing time. I wasn't really doing anything, just bounced around, because I had new eyes on me like every 6 months trying to redo that whole process over.
Sure. All right, let's get back to the CrossFit thing here. So you have that first workout, 4 minutes, and you felt like you got beat up for an hour.
Yeah.
When you go back for time 2 or workout 2, what are you thinking?
At that point, I walked into the CrossFit gym, and I remember just thinking, I don't know, like, what I'm doing here. Because at that point, I still wasn't too fond of CrossFit. I just knew that one workout proved how bad of shape I was actually in when I thought I was in great shape. So I just wanted to get better at whatever it was I wasn't good at. So I kind of walked in just thinking, this is probably going to be hell for the first month or 2 that I'm doing it, which, like, the workout side of it was. But the thing with CrossFit is I happened to find a really good gym where the people in the gym were amazing. So it was fun to come back and kind of be with my friends and train and hang out with them and suffer with them. And they made that process a lot more enjoyable, where I think if I would have went to a gym where the people weren't as welcoming as them, I probably wouldn't have stuck out CrossFit at all.
How much of CrossFit, when you first get into it, were you able to relate to other sports, whether it's soccer, baseball, football, whatever?
On the mental side, I'd say you can relate a lot, because a lot of it is, you think of like doing conditioning sprints for football, and you're just kind of doing 1 rep at a time. Like, you're finishing that 110-meter run that you're doing or whatever. And in CrossFit, it's the same thing, except for it's solo, so it's you doing it by yourself, even though there's still a group of people around. But a lot of, like, the mental aspect of pushing yourself as an athlete kind of transfer over. The movements and all that kind of stuff were brand new. Like, I've never done a rope climb before I did CrossFit. I don't think I ever did thrusters. I definitely didn't do any muscle ups or toes to bar or any of those gymnastics movements. So there was a huge learning curve of just, which I think was fun for me, because those were all fun challenges, like trying to figure out how to do a muscle up and how to walk on my hands and do different things like that, which made the process a lot more enjoyable for me as well.
Do you think that if you had discovered CrossFit either while you were in college or before, would you have been a better football player?
I think, yeah, I could see a good transfer over from doing CrossFit in the world of football. And I think a lot of sports could benefit from it if they structure in its program towards strengthening them and getting them more fit for their specific movements they do in their sport. And I think football could definitely benefit from that, because I've always been known, like, especially when I was competing in CrossFit, I was always known as a more powerful and stronger athlete. And all I did while doing CrossFit, I didn't get any weaker. I think actually I got stronger doing CrossFit for the 4 years that I was, like, competing in it. But my ability to just do more work and stay healthy just was tenfold. I went from that Fran workout killed me for 90 minutes, where I could do Fran, 5 times a day and be fine at one point. So I think having that kind of capacity could transfer over into a football field greatly, where if you don't get gassed in the fourth quarter, you can still perform like you did in the first quarter, because your conditioning is so far advanced, and you still have strength and you still have power for 4 quarters. I think that's going to greatly affect how you can play on a field.
It's interesting. I want you to put your strength and conditioning coach hat back on. Why aren't more teams and more sports, either at the collegiate or professional level, using CrossFit ideas and theories in the way that they train their athletes?
On my opinion is a lot of collegiate strength and conditioning coaches aren't comfortable teaching Olympic movements, don't know how to teach the Olympic movements like very well, or don't know how to perform them very well. So they shy away from that, and they think CrossFit is just a lot of high repetition Olympic movements, which it isn't. It's CrossFit is, training specific energy pathways through different movements. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Olympic movements, or it doesn't have to be gymnastics. So you could do whatever you want. And I don't think a lot of coaches have gone into that world and actually seen it structured in a way that it could benefit athletes. And I think vice versa. I think a lot of CrossFit coaches that have come from that world could benefit some of these universities and some of these colleges by showing them how to structure it properly and how to, progress through a season using CrossFit and help their athletes stay strong and stay healthy. And I think it's just the two worlds have been so separate, and the people who are in the collegiate world view it in a certain way, but they haven't maybe researched it all the way through. And I think that kind of gap is where you don't see a lot of universities using it. And a lot of universities also have had success doing what they're doing already. So a lot of them think, if it's not broke, don't fix it type mentality. So they stick with, their undulating systems or like their conjugate systems or whatever it is that they do specifically for their teams that they've had success with in the past.
He's Blaine McConnell, a professional CrossFit athlete, now part of Team USA Bobsled. When we come back, we'll go through his professional CrossFit career, including his journey and time abroad and on to Team USA. We'll do all that coming up next here on the Kill Cliff podcast, brought to you by Kill Cliff.
You're listening to the Kill the Quit podcast hour, presented by Kill Cliff Performance Drinks.
Kill Cliff, performance drinks for warriors to get you up, get you through, and get you back to full speed.
And now, back to the show with host Mark Zinno.
Welcome back to the Kill Cliff podcast. I'm your host, Mark Zinno. This week, our guest is Blaine McConnell, former professional CrossFit athlete, current member of Team USA Bobsled. Also had a short stint in the Arena League playing professional football. But we last left off, you had hung up your football career and you started to fall in love with CrossFit. And you ended up joining the National Pro Grid League. So the Grid League is a professional CrossFit league, but kind of give me the background of how you get introduced to this and, what it is and how it works.
Yeah, so Grid was introduced, I believe, in 2014.
Does it stand for anything, Grid?
The Grid is like the playing field that the whole thing was set up on. So that was called the Grid. National Pro Grid League was the name of the league. There was 8 professional teams in the U.S. There's a team in Miami, New York, Phoenix, LA. A lot of the big cities had a team. And it was mixed up of men and women who would go through 12 mini races in a match, and you would accumulate points by winning those mini races. By the time the match was over, whoever had the most points would win. So some of the events were like co-ed events where it was men and women working together. Some were just women events. Some were just men events. Everything was like the exciting stuff people like to see in CrossFit. So it was all the sprint workouts or the heavy lifts or the fancy gymnastics movements. Nothing super long. I think the longest race took 5 minutes to complete in a match. So the match length in total would be about 2 hours long. So there was enough rest in between where people could still perform at a high level throughout everything. And people who are watching could see exciting, fast races throughout. But I got introduced to it by being a fan of it first. So it got introduced in 2014, and I happened to just be in the CrossFit world. Everybody knew this thing was happening, and they wanted to see how it was going on, and myself as well. So I watched a lot of the matches online. I thought it was great because it geared towards me specifically, being a stronger, more powerful athlete, not somebody who enjoys the 40-minute workouts. So the second year, I actually tried out for it and was signed to the team based out of Phoenix. So the Phoenix Rise was that team. And I ended up moving down to Scottsdale, Arizona.
What's the tryout process for this?
They do like their own combine. So I think the tryout process was you had to do like a 3-rep max clean and jerk. You had to do like a couple short sprint workouts. Like they wanted to see like max capacity and some gymnastics movements. So like what's your max set of strict handstand push-ups or max set of muscle ups, and just kind of like trying to figure out like what type of athlete you are, and like teams could get numbers on you for certain stuff.
So when you go into this tryout, are you thinking and feeling like, oh, you know, this is kind of similar to my Arena League tryout, or this is kind of similar to walking on at Idaho? Like, is the mentality the same for you?
The mentality is the same, but I have a lot more confidence going into like the grid tryout than I did walking on to football. Yeah.
No, but you had only been doing CrossFit for how long at this point? 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, probably 2.5, maybe 3 years.
And you felt like you were more ready for that than you were for walking on at Idaho or the Arena League.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like
wow.
because walking on to Idaho, I had always been told in high school I'll never be a D1 player. I was always told like you're going to go D2, just size and speed wise, that's where you belong. So that's why I took that year off to train, because I wanted to tell people, you know, screw that, I'm going to go D1 just because people were telling me I couldn't do it. So as I was walking on, like I wasn't confident that was going to happen, because I'd always been told it's not going to happen. And the same thing with going to like the arena tryout. I never played in college. Like I was on the team in college, but I hardly ever played. Like it didn't do much because of how, like my process was just, I'm an athlete kind of filling up space on the roster. So going into the arena tryout was all these guys I'm trying out against were all starters on their teams or had a lot more PT than me, and they belonged there more than I did. So I was just kind of battling against that mindset. But going into the grid, even though I'd only been doing CrossFit for 2-3 years at that point, knowing what the grid was about and seeing how it was that year, I had full confidence that I would make a team. I didn't know what team I was going to be put on or what team was going to draft me. But going into that workout, I was like, I know I can hit numbers better than anybody, because it's a very tangible sport. Like I can see that this guy can clean and jerk 375, and I know I can beat that. So I came in with a lot more confidence because I could base myself off of athletes who are already on teams. And I could pick out athletes like, I know I'm better than you, and you. So I know I'll make a team, but I just don't know where it will be.
Interesting. So take me through that first grid race. What's it like?
Oh, the adrenaline is through the roof. It is insane because it's not the same type of adrenaline rush as like playing in a normal team sport, I guess you could say. It's different because you got to go out there and you're moving heavy loads as fast as you possibly can. And my first race, I think I just about died halfway through the race. I was so exhausted and so tired because I went out too hard. It was just on full adrenaline rush until, you know, halfway through. I think there's 12 races in a match, and I made it through about 6 before the coach was like, "Great job, but we're subbing you out for the rest of the match." So for me, it was a little bit of a learning curve on that first match, but it was the biggest adrenaline rush I think I had up to that point in sports.
Was it the level of exhaustion that you felt after that first CrossFit workout, or worse?
I would say it was worse because it was slightly different. Like I was in better shape at that point, but I just went out too hard. So like it was the point where I almost felt like I was getting rhabdo. Like my arms were so pumped and my back was blowing up. Like everything was just pushed to the max at that point. So it wasn't as bad as like I felt like I was going to throw up for 90 minutes, but it was as bad as like I just didn't want to move for like 2 days because I was so sore after that.
All right. So after your first year on the Phoenix Rise, you end up moving to Stockholm, where you end up competing in the Reebok CrossFit Games, correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right. So how does that come? Was that the reason you moved there, or does that just come about sort of because of happenstance?
No. So I had met my now wife on the team. So she was on the team from the first year. She came back for the second year. We met during the season. We started dating. She was living in Stockholm at the time, even though she's from Iceland. She's had a lot going on there with work and stuff. So after the season was over, she went back to Stockholm. And if we wanted to continue dating, it wasn't going to, like, the long distance thing wasn't going to work. So she had so much more going on in terms of, like, she was a gladiator on a TV show. She had her sponsor deals all out of Sweden and everything. So I was like, I'll just move to you because it'll be easier for us to try to make this work.
Wait, a gladiator on a TV show, like American Gladiators, except like Swedish Gladiators?
Yeah, exactly. She was, they had it. They don't run the show anymore, but they had basically American Gladiators, but a Swedish version. And she was one of the gladiators on the TV show.
What was her nickname? You know how they had like Ice and Laser and Nitro? What was hers?
Hers was Bjork.
Oh.
And her name is Bjork.
Okay.
So they let her keep her name because she is Icelandic, and her character on the show was the Viking character. So they just thought keeping her name would be the best.
Oh, okay. Well, then that works out. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I've never known anybody who married a gladiator. Okay, so
Yeah.
It's kind of weird when you say it. But you also competed at the CrossFit Games there together, right?
Yeah. So we were training out of a gym in Stockholm where we were living, and we decided we want to put together a team. So we got a couple of our friends we knew were really good at CrossFit. We started doing like training together and putting things together to where we wanted to go team that year. And the goal was to try to put together a team that was going to go win. And we knew just from training together and seeing each other, like we were going to go to the CrossFit game. Like before the Open even started, we had bought tickets to go to the games or like plane tickets because we knew we were going to be there. That's how we were fairly confident that we had a solid team. So we ended up winning the Open in our region. We ended up winning regionals, which is the process goes. You have to compete in the Open. Top 20 of the Open will qualify for regionals. And then top 5 out of regionals will go to the games. We ended up winning regionals and making it to the games. And then overall at the games, we had a great time, but ended up in 6th place.
Okay. Consider that a win, a loss, happy to place? How do you view it?
I would honestly consider it kind of a win. Like we wanted to be we thought for sure we could be top 5, and like the top 5 teams get paid out. So we thought we could be a money team being a top 5 team. There was just a few things that didn't go our way in a couple workouts where we had a couple mishaps that we could have done a lot better on. I had broken my foot on one of the workouts because we dropped a barbell on it. And then the workout directly after that was a sprint, and there's no way I was going to be sprinting at full speed. So like little things like that kind of threw a wrench into our plan, but we ended up in 6th. And I would say overall, everyone was fairly happy with the 6th place finish.
All right. Certainly impressive, but yet you still have one more year of the Phoenix Rise. So after Sweden, you go back to the United States again?
Yeah, we go back and we do one more season of the grid and had an amazing season. The team was so close. It was like everything we were doing was clicking on each race, and we were just dominating other teams that we were going up against. And that season was, the whole year of 2016 for me was amazing. Like going to the CrossFit Games was great. We ended up winning the grid championship in 2016 as well, which was phenomenal. I was awarded the MVP of the league that year, and my wife who was my girlfriend at the time, proposed to me during the season of 2016. So all of 2016 was a great time in total.
Now, there's obviously a story there. It's not uncommon. It's not traditional that the woman proposes to the man. So give me the details.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. I would say it happens more in Europe than it would in the States, or
Gotcha.
at least
Okay.
I've heard of it happening more here. But if anybody knows my wife, would not be surprised at all that she's the one that proposed first. The story behind the proposal, though, is we'd talked about getting married, and she had always told me, like, if you ever propose, don't propose in front of a group of people, because she just didn't want, I don't know, the pressure of people around. But we were staying in Provo, Utah, where we had some of our races and stuff for the grid league going on, and we had a team hike planned, and everybody was going to go hike up this mountain and then take a team photo and give it to the league as kind of like a promotional thing. But the day before this hike, we were going through one of our races and like practicing a little bit because we had a match coming up in a few days, and I dropped a 100-pound dumbbell on the same foot that I'd broken in the games. And I felt like I re-broke it again, and it was just throbbing at that point. So the next day, the coaches and everybody were trying to get everybody to go on the hike, and I told them, like, I'm not hiking. My foot hurts. I don't want to walk up a mountain. And I'm not, like, everybody was pressuring me to go on this hike. I was like, I don't know why it's such a big deal to go on this hike. I don't want to go on this hike. But I figured, like, at that point, everybody on the team was like, we were doing everything together. It's like, I'll suck it up and walk up this mountain. So we get to the mountain. I found out as soon as we got there, they lied to me. They told me there was like a pathway you could just walk up the whole time. And there was a path for like the first 100 meters. And then the rest of the hike was gravel and rocks and climbing. And by the time we get up to the top of the mountain, we're all up there. I'm just kind of looking around. I'm standing like kind of off to the side on this flat rock. The rest of the team is on my right side. I'm looking over the mountain. There's a waterfall right next to me. I turn around, I start looking at the waterfall, and I feel like this tug on my hand. So I turn back around, and everybody, like, our team had 20 people on it, plus our owner of the team was there, the coaches were there, our owner's mom was there, like, everybody was there, and they all have their phones out. So I'm looking at them, and they're pointing their phones at me, but had no clue what's going on, so I figured I'm missing something behind me. So I turned back around to look, like, what is everybody filming? And Bjork was on her knee in front of me, and I just happened to like look over her and didn't even realize she was down there. So she yanks on my arm again to like pull me down, and then I see her, and she's on her knee. She has the ring box open, and she has a ring, and she asked me to marry her, and I was just kind of like staring at her, like so many thoughts went through my head at that time. Like, you said never propose in front of everybody, and here is everybody. One, and another thing is like, you are proposing, which kind of took me way off guard. And of course I said yes. And then everybody was cheering. They had their phones out. It was a bunch of videos and photos and all that. And then we walked down the mountain and had like a great team dinner. Our owner took us to like this Brazilian steakhouse and had like a post proposal dinner / like pre-championship dinner for the team. So it was great.
How was your foot through this whole thing?
Honestly, at that point, I wasn't thinking about my foot anymore. Once I got up, like, as I was walking up there, the whole time I was just thinking, it was like, my foot hurts. I don't want to be doing this. My foot hurts. I don't want to be doing this. And I had no clue. Like, everybody on the team knew why we were there except me. So every time I wanted to stop and be like, I'll just meet you guys as you're coming down, like, everybody was like, no, we're all going. Like, we all have to go. So once I got up there, like on the way down, I was like, this is why you guys wanted me up here so bad. So the proposal could go down. Okay, I get it.
Makes a lot of sense. Hey, listen, that's an awesome story, Blaine. It really is. That's great to hear. All right, when we come back, Blaine's journey out of CrossFit onto Team USA. That is coming up next on the Kill Cliff podcast, brought to you by Kill Cliff. We'll be right back.
You are listening to the Kill the Quit podcast hour presented by Kill Cliff Performance Drinks, proud partner of the Navy SEAL Foundation.
Welcome back to the Kill Cliff broadcast, brought to you by Kill Cliff. I am Mark Zinno. Our guest this week, Blaine McConnell, former CrossFit athlete, current Team USA Bobsled member. And we last left off after being proposed to on the side of a mountain. He has the woman of his dreams ready to go, but yet there's still more athletically calling because, as you mentioned, you finished up your grid season in CrossFit, winning the national title. You're named MVP. So how do you figure out what's next?
At that point, like, you're on such a high, I don't think we were really thinking about what's next. It was a long season because the games led straight into the season of grid. And then as soon as grid was over, I think we were more thinking about, like, where's our vacation going to be? Let's take some rest for a while. But through that off season, I ended up getting a position at CrossFit Invictus, which is in San Diego. Mm-hmm. And took that coaching position. My wife and I moved down there and stayed there for the year. And while we were down there, just the plan for me was I was done competing in CrossFit. Like, I had accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. I didn't want to try to go back to the games just because I knew how much work it was going to take in, and I want to focus more at that time on coaching and building that to be a career that I wanted to pursue after the life of CrossFit. And my wife was still competing while in San Diego as well. So being in San Diego and with CrossFit Invictus, they're probably one of the most well-known organizations in the world of CrossFit, if not the most well-known organization. It was almost like a dream come true to me because it was exactly the type of job I was looking to do. Like, I was able to coach athletes online. I was able to coach people in-house. We have a great amount of high-quality athletes that are in-house in San Diego. And then because we have such a vast online community, we have a lot of top-tier athletes around the world that come visit us in San Diego and train. And it was exactly something that I wanted to be a part of. So it was kind of a no-brainer that we're going to make that move down to San Diego.
Yeah, also getting away from the snow of Stockholm and the mountains of Utah, San Diego must have been a welcome change.
Yeah, definitely. Living in Sweden and then living in Iceland, like getting away from the cold and the snow and the mountains and moving down to the beaches and the sun was not a bad move at all.
All right, so as you're working there in San Diego, do you have an idea of what you want to do next? Because you get the sense that, and I talk to a lot of people in the CrossFit world, they never sit idle for long.
They don't. No, that's true. It took me a while to figure out what I was going to do. I think at one point I made a decision where I was going to start training like 100% for Olympic weightlifting. I'd always had really good weightlifting numbers, even for being a CrossFitter. And CJ, who owns CrossFit Invictus, is also a USAW coach, and he's like, there's no reason you shouldn't be a weightlifter. Like, you're probably the best Olympic weightlifter that's never competed ever. So you should jump into that sport while you still have time to compete and be at a high level. So I had just been doing weightlifting for maybe 6 to 8 months, and then the whole bobsled season, or the whole bobsled chapter, I guess, began at that point.
Well, let me ask you before you get into the bobsled stuff. When someone says, hey, you should just be on the USA weightlifting team, is that daunting to you? Like, to hear, like, okay, the Olympics is for the less than 1% of the athletes in the world who are that highly skilled. To me, it seems like someone says, you should be in the Olympics. It's not like saying, hey, you should go down and play basketball at the local, park. Like, it's vastly different.
Yeah. Okay. He wasn't saying like, hey, you should go do the Olympics. He was just saying like, you should get into this sport because you have the ability to be very good at it, especially for the weight class that I was at the time. Like, I could have gone to a few meets and easily qualified for like nationals my first year in the sport. Like, it wouldn't have been difficult just because my numbers were already there where it could have been an easy transition. So he was saying, get into the sport so you can, if you want to achieve some goals, like, you have time to do that now. I don't think he was pushing me saying like, you can go to the Olympics. The Olympics, especially for weightlifting, it's extremely difficult to do, as well as be an American trying to do that. So
how old are you at this point?
I'm 33 now. So then I was 31.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I was 31.
So hitting your stride in your prime athletically, so to speak.
Yeah.
All right. So when does the word bobsled come into your lexicon?
Yeah. So it bobsled is very unique in a sense that I did not pursue bobsled at all. If I wasn't in the certain place at a certain time, bobsled would never have been on my radar. And the whole thing that happened with it is during February is when the Open starts for CrossFit. So we have a lot of our top tier athletes in town. They all do the Open in San Diego, and we have like this Friday Night Lights thing. After one of the workouts, we all go back to Sam and Jen Dancer's place, which I think you've spoke to Sam on the podcast before.
And Jen have both been guests on the Kill Cliff podcast. So we know the dancers well.
Yeah, the dancers are great. We're over at their place, and it's after one of the Friday Night Lights. We have a group of people over there. We're all just kind of hanging out. We have the TV on, but we're not really paying attention to it. And all of a sudden, like, the Winter Olympics pop on. So now we're all paying attention because we're all interested to see what pops on next. And then bobsled comes on. And as soon as bobsled comes on the TV, everybody in the room was like, Blaine, you would be an amazing bobsledder. And like, I was just thinking, it was like, probably, like, I'm not sure what it takes to be a bobsledder, but sure. And one of the guys,
I mean, I feel like that's the equivalent to someone saying, Mark, you'd be a great cricket player. Like, what do I know about cricket? Like, it's the first, okay, it's like baseball. Okay, I think that's what baseball derived from. I feel like I could probably do it, but what the hell do I know about it? What did you know about bobsled?
At that point, I didn't know anything about bobsled. Like, we were just watching the races on TV, and they were talking about some of the guys from the States and then some of the guys from other countries. And you just, like, look at these guys, and they're built guys, and they're powerful, and they're fast. And Sam always will be watching me when I'm training in the gym, just like I'm doing my plyo jumps and all this kind of stuff. So he was like, you'd be an amazing bobsledder. Like, I know for a fact you would. So I was like, yeah, okay. Maybe I don't know what it takes, but like, I wasn't thinking about being a bobsledder at that point. But one of the guys that was in the house with us, his name's Jared Enderton, and he lives in Colorado and happened to train athletes at the Olympic Training Center in weightlifting, and knows like some of the people in the bobsled world. So he had just said, like, if you're interested and you really want to like know what it's about, like, I can put in a word for you and get you in contact. So I was like, yeah, sure, that'd be great, do that. And I'm not thinking anything is going to be coming of this at all. So like, we're all sitting in a living room, everybody's eating tacos, and we're just watching. Like, I'm not thinking I'm going to be pushing a bobsled anytime soon.
Especially not in San Diego.
Yeah, especially not in San Diego. Like, I'm just thinking like, oh, sure, it's a nice thing. Like, he'll put in a good word for me. Like, I'm not going to start training tomorrow for bobsled. I wasn't thinking about anything. And I think it was maybe 3 months after that, I get a phone call from Mike Dion, who is one of the recruiters for USA Bobsled. And he had said, I heard you're interested in bobsled. And it caught me totally off guard because I had to like think about, when did I ever say I was interested in bobsled? And it brought me back to that night. I was like, oh, Jared must have picked this up. I was like, yeah. So we started talking. He gave me the rundown of like what the process would be, which is they have like their own combine that you have to start off with. And there happened to be a combine that they were holding in Chula Vista, which was 30 minutes from where I was living. And I decided I was going to go down to Chula Vista for step one and go do the combine and just see how it went.
You seem to be getting into a lot of combines and tryouts. This is a repetitive thing for you.
Yeah, I'm trying out for everything all the time, it feels like. Well, not anymore, but at one point it's just like, you can try out for this, you can try out for that. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever.
What was their combine and tryout like?
Their combine is very similar to what you would expect like a football combine to be, minus like the skill and position type drills. But like, you do a sprint, a 45 meter sprint, broad jump. There's a couple lifts that you need, like a one rep max power clean, 3 rep max back squat, a shot put toss, and I think that might be just about it. But the first part of it is you just do the run, the jump, and the throw. And that's kind of like, if you can score enough points on these 3, then we'll bring you in for part 2. So I did really well. I ended up scoring the top out of all the athletes that went to the combine in Chula Vista. So I qualified to come to part 2, which is they bring you out to the Olympic Training Center in Lake Placid, and they do like a rookie mini camp. And this is where they're going to see, can you actually push a sled, or are you just, a good athlete on paper? Because there's a lot of people who walk in who have great numbers on paper, but just can't figure out how to get behind a sled and move it fast. So they bring you out there, and they have like this track that's on dry land, and it's got kind of like these little metal wheels on it, so you can train in the summertime. And we all push on this, and everybody's learning how to do it. And they end with like a race off at the end of the camp, where they set up these 2 timing eyes that are maybe 30 meters apart from each other, and you just hit it and go and see who can push the sled the fastest between those 2 marks. And I ended up getting top 3 at the rookie training camp for that. By the time everything was said and done with the combine, I had scored the highest point total out of all incoming rookies for the season.
Wow.
And because I scored so well, I think anybody who scored over 500 points total were invited to come to team trials. And team trials is basically 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks of like actually being on the ice and pushing a sled and like learning the ins and outs a little bit more of what it's going to take to be on the team. And you go through that, and then you do kind of the team trial race, which is a 2-man race and a 4-man race. And once the race is over, the pilot and his squad, who gets like the fastest times overall, they're on the national team. So they're going to be USA 1. USA 2 and 3 are all discretionary picks that the coaches and the selection committee make at that point. And I wasn't on USA 1. It was me, 2 other rookies, and one of our younger pilots that were racing 4-man. And we just happened to just go out there and just push. I think we got 3rd in the 4-man races. So, and I think there was only 3 4-man. So we got last out of the 4-man races. But we did well enough that we impressed the coaches, where all 3 of the rookie pushers on that sled ended up making the national team. So that's how I made the national team this year for USA Bobsled.
When you were going through the combine and everything, is it just a solo man? It's a one person run?
Yeah. We did a couple combo pushes just so like you could feel what it's like. But the testing part of that, where you're actually getting timed, was just you're pushing from the brakes position. So that's the position that's like directly in the back of the sled.
Gotcha.
And you're just getting your time off of that.
All right. So where are you now? I mean, are you hopeful to make the 2020 games?
The next games is 2022.
2022.
So
I'm sorry. 2020 is summer.
Yeah. So my goal is 2022, and I feel really good. And from talking with the coaches about how my rookie year went and the expectations set for me going into this upcoming season and the season after that, I feel confident that I can make a good push to making the Olympic team. And I think from where we were at this last season to what we can accomplish at the Olympics, I think as a group, we're going to send multiple sleds to the Olympics, which increases the chance, because more sleds means more pushing athletes, which means more Olympic team spots.
Have you ever thought about the idea of winning a gold medal?
Of course. I think anybody in the sport thinks about getting a medal and thinks about that medal being around their neck. Me in particular, my first pilot that I raced with this season, his name's Justin Olson, and he used to be a push athlete as well, and he actually won a gold medal being a push athlete. So all my first races, like we were in Whistler, and when we travel around, you're usually staying in the same house as the pilot that you're pushing with. And we were staying with him, and we would just talk to him about, what they did during that gold medal season and what it was like and what expectations they had. Like, it was good to pick his brain a bunch about that, because it kind of brings a little bit more realism to the goal versus just saying, I want to win a gold medal, but nobody here has done it. So like, how do we do it? It's great to have a gold medalist on the team still, so he can kind of remind you like, hey, this is stuff that it takes to win a gold medal. And I think the goal is to win a gold at the Olympics. This past season, we had a lot of rookies on the team. I think almost half, if not more than half of the team was rookies. And we didn't perform as well as I think a lot of us had set expectations for, but I think we still performed very well overall. And I think as we get better as a unit, that gold becomes more realistic. But this year, I think it's just getting medals and getting closer to the podium. That'll be the next step towards winning that gold. Because last year we didn't win any medals for anything. And I think it's great to have a mindset going into this next season saying we're going to win gold, but like, I just want to win medals first, and then I can start getting picky about what color those medals are. But right now, let's just start getting hardware versus being picky about it. And I think that's where my mindset is now.
Well, Blaine, it's an amazing story from Arena League football to CrossFit MVP to now Olympic hopeful. It's certainly been an incredible journey. I loved hearing your story, brother, and certainly I wish you nothing but the best of luck, continued health, and continued success as you go forward on your journey. And certainly we hope to see you standing on a podium one day.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Mark.
Blaine McConnell, thanks for being part of the Kill Cliff podcast.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody.
Really enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us here on the Kill Cliff podcast. We'll talk to you next week.
WFON
and W292EV Marietta,
a Dickey broadcasting station.
live from the Wellstar Health System Studios.
1230 and 106.3 FM, The Sports X.